sir.
All right.
Let me see.
Just pull up a chair somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
And
Back to the.
we're going to continue our introduction to divorce.
Oh, yeah.
You ready to get divorced?
The way my week's been, I'm just about. But don't tell her that.
Don't.
Okay.
Oh, well. We started last week, but we had a lot of computer trouble, so we didn't get very far. And nobody was here anyway, so. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 17. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. A lot of that going on.
Yeah.
For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
Right.
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt do no work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. So there you have the 10.
Right.
And how have you done this week?
I do have a question I want to ask you. What is covet something like because they have something you don't, and you wish that you had what they got? Is that part of what covenant means?
Covetousness, which is the 10th commandment, is also the second commandment.
Mm-hmm.
Paul says covetousness, which is idolatry, which putting something first for yourself.
Okay.
You know, now there's a difference between saying I'd like to have one of those.
Right.
You know, I wished a long time for a Cadillac. I finally had one.
Right.
I drove it for 5-6 years and it broke down. And so I had to back up and get something else.
Okay. See, I always used to think that was part of, like, let's say, like your neighbor, and you're saying, well, he's got this and I don't, and you're covenant over something he's got that you don't.
Yeah.
That's what I thought basically it was all.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your reaction to it.
To it.
You know, seeing something and say, that's nice, it'd be nice if I had one,
Mm-hmm.
and that's as far as you go.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
That's like you're married
Mm-hmm.
and you see another pretty thing.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
And, well, you can't help but see a pretty thing
Right.
and acknowledge that that's a pretty thing,
Right.
as long as you leave it there.
Leave it where
And
it's at.
that's where we're going today,
All right.
is the 7th commandment, thou shalt not commit
Commit.
adultery.
Adultery.
That's the only commandment that uses the word commit.
Okay.
You can inadvertently take something that doesn't belong to you. You can have it in your hand like a pen and stick it in your pocket.
Right.
Because that's the habit you do with your own pen.
Right.
So you didn't mean to take it, but you took it anyway.
Right.
Okay? You can accidentally kill somebody. Not meaning to, but something happens, and because of the situation, somebody was killed.
Right.
We call that an accident.
Right.
Okay, and but you cannot accidentally commit adultery.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing that. You're doing that on your own free will.
You were tempted.
Tempted. Right.
You may have put yourself into a tempting situation because you wanted to.
Right.
And okay, Friday, Saturday night, I have my favorite honky tonk. And when you go to the honky tonk, unless you go to a gay bar, there's going to be women there.
Jim, there's something else. Yeah, I see what you said.
So when James said we are tempted of our own lust, and when we give into it, we're taken away.
Taken away.
So anyhow, adultery is a very intimate subject, and everybody just about is interested. Even if they're not straight, they're still interested in having sexual relations, the most personal, intimate relations you can have.
Right.
But we have to understand God's point of view.
Well, his point of view of it.
Yeah. And in Exodus 31:18, he reiterates that Moses gave the Ten Commandments written in stone. And he repeats that again in Exodus 34:28, Deuteronomy 4:13, and Deuteronomy 5:18. He reiterates, neither shalt thou commit adultery.
Right.
And so basically, what does God think of your sex life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
If you have one.
Yeah.
Between Exodus 20 and the end of Deuteronomy, there are 3,700 verses. Of those, 139 deal with sex.
Right.
In one way or another.
One way or the other.
And so we're going to start from the bottom and work up.
Right.
Okay, so the first one is bestiality, having sex with animal. I don't know if you ever hear that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, Leviticus 25, verses 15 and 16. And if a man lie with a beast, he shall surely be put to death, and you shall slay the beast. And if a woman approach unto any beast and lie down thereto, thou shalt kill the woman and the beast. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. During my time in the Navy, traveling around here, there, and yonder, I've heard of it. I've heard people tell me that they've seen it done on stage as entertainment. A woman and a mule or something,
Yeah.
and bestiality. And so both the person and the beast are to be executed. And also is Exodus 22:19, Leviticus 18:23, and Deuteronomy 27:21 go along with the idea of you just don't do that.
Right.
The second one is, of course, sodomy. And Leviticus 20, verse 13, if a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. And it's interesting to note that this is verse 13. And also in Leviticus 18:22 and Deuteronomy 23:17, no son of Israel is to be a sodomite, and or a woman lay down with another woman. God calls it an abomination, and they're to be stoned to death by stoning. And now, under the law of Moses, the stoning, death execution had to be by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. One witness was insufficient to execute, but by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, then it could be executed. And those that were the witnesses were first to cast the stones, and then the whole congregation joined in and just covered him over with stones, so they were no more. And that created one. It created a deterrent, because if I do that, that's going to be me. I won't be under that pile of stones.
Right.
So this is from your wife, Ken.
Oh, thank you, there, Sister Melissa.
She,
Thank
she
you. very
poured
much.
you a nice cup. Do you need some coffee or anything?
I'm good right now. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sister.
You're welcome.
Hey, I didn't drink too much already this morning. So God is interested in our sex life, and He wants us to be pure. A comparison in the Bible, particularly go at Ephesians chapter 5, the church and Christ is compared to a husband and a wife. And obviously, Jesus Christ has to have a pure church. So a husband needs to have a pure bride. And of course, if you don't have a pure husband, you can't expect to. If you go to that honky tonk and go fishing, you're going to get what you get.
Right,
Yeah. If you don't want what's in a honky tonk, then go somewhere else to fish.
right.
A good place to fish is the church,
Yeah, right.
particularly a Bible believing church where the people are Bible believing and do their best to live according to God's law. Third on our list is prostitution. And Deuteronomy 23, 17 and 18. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore, or the price of a dog, into the house of the Lord thy God for any vow, for both these are an abomination to the Lord thy God. God doesn't want the money earned by prostitution or from the sale of a dog brought into His house.
Right.
So if you want to get out of having to pay tithes, start raising dogs. God won't require it. or become a pimp.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I know you want to go on, but see, when my dad was in the Navy, he, of course, when he was in there, he was married to his second wife. Not my mother, his second wife. Wasn't married to her long. And when he was on leave from the Navy, now what he did, I don't know. But there was some of his buddies that were married, and they would go, you know, they would interchange with other women. They said a lot of sailors, as well as Army soldiers, did that, you know. But the Navy was real good about it back then, back in them times. And his dad was born in 1923. I don't know what year he went into the Navy, but a lot of them sailors, especially when they docked over in England, you know, a lot of them sailors that were married would go in there and they'd do their thing and everything else. He may have, I don't know, he claimed he didn't, but I don't know, you know, when we're young men, you know.
Well, there was a lot of still that going on even during my time. I originally went in the Navy in 61, and I finally retired in 93. I was out for a while in the reserves and went back active to get my retirement. But through the whole period of time, there was hanky-panky going on.
Going on, yeah.
It's nothing new. Like they say, it's the oldest profession.
There is, yeah.
And so, yeah, we went to Tampico, Mexico on the ship I was on. And I was a photographer. And so I had to take my camera along with me to take pictures. And we went into this house. I shouldn't have, but I did. And I took a couple of pictures in the house. And then when I got back on the ship, a couple of guys came and said, "Does those pictures come?"
come in yet?
They wanted, what you gonna do with those pictures? Can I get them? They didn't want it to get back to the missus.
Well, see, that's what happened. Dad said there was a lot of them, his buddies, that were married, and that they, when their time was up, they never told their missus what they did. Well, one of them deals, what you don't know won't hurt you. But sailors were good about that even back then. Now, there was probably guys in the Army that did the same thing, but they said sailors back at that time were, after it was all said and done, was over with, the sailors were happy to see their wives. Now, some of the sailors were probably committed to their wives, but Dad said there was a whole lot of them that wasn't.
Yeah. But so anyhow, prostitution and dogs, and I don't know why God had to pick on the dogs, since he's the one that made the dogs. He didn't make prostitutes, but he made the dogs.
Yeah.
Well, dogs are unclean.
Mhm.
If you leave them alone, if you don't train them, leave them alone, just be themselves, they're going to be dirty.
Right.
And you let them out of the house, and if there's some dirt around, they're going to get dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't stop and clean them off, they'll bring it in the house.
Right.
Well, that's what happens when you mess around.
Right.
Okay, the fourth thing, sex outside the family. Deuteronomy 22, 21 to 27. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and the man find her in the city and lie with her, then ye shall bring both of them to the gate of the city, and ye shall stone them with stones, that they die. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife. So shalt thou put away evil from among you. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. But of the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death, for as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. No, you basically have to take her word for it. I was out there and picking daisies, and this guy saw me, and he came over and raped me.
Right.
And I hollered, and I tried to fight him off, but he was stronger than I is, and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And so, with no witnesses, you just have to take her word for it.
Yeah.
But in any case, then on the other hand, a single woman, not engaged. Now, under Jewish custom and law, engagement period could last up to 12 months. And during that period, they were separated. They were supposed to maintain their purity and everything, so that when they came together, each would know the other was pure. And there was usually a watchman set to watch over.
Right.
And so forth. So if there was a violation, that's like with Joseph and Mary. Joseph was engaged to Mary when the Holy Ghost implanted Jesus in her womb.
Right.
And so the angel said, "Fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife." So during the engagement period, and the engaged woman was still considered the man's wife, even though they weren't together.
Right.
And we kind of got it a little backwards. We have the engagement period, which may last, however long it lasts, and then we have a wedding and a ceremony. Well, under Jewish custom, the ceremony was at the engagement. Then you had that period of separation.
Right.
And then you had the feast when they came together.
I guess that's just the way they did it in their beliefs, isn't it?
But anyhow, the single woman, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. he may not put her away all his days.
Right.
You know, so he raped her in shotgun wedding, and he can never divorce her,
Never divorce her.
no matter what. You know, you made your bed, now you lay in it.
I did too.
Next is with your neighbor's wife. You know, Leviticus 20 verse 10. And the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that is Leviticus 18:20, 19:20, and Deuteronomy 22:22. No discrimination. It takes two to tango.
That's right.
You know, and capital punishment again is invoked, and this is the capital punishment is to rid evil out of the land.
Right.
And so this is a lot of the stuff that went on that caused Israel to finally be booted back out of the land.
Right.
You know, they booted everybody out, took the land, and then they fell off the wagon, and so God booted them off the land.
Right.
Now we don't have, let's see. Oh, a bond slave. Now, we don't have bond slaves today, but we have employees. We can have servants, paid servants. And so there again, if you sleep with someone under your tutorage, again, you have to marry them.
Right.
And but if they want to go out, or you decide you don't like them no more, because they were a servant, you just have to let them go free.
Right.
And then they're free to marry someone else. God makes a pretty explicit list of the do's and don'ts of marriage and divorce. Right. And sexual misconduct.
Right.
So we have to consider God's rules, of course, within the framework of our society. Our society, well, it's on the highway to hell.
Yeah.
And so they ignore it. The fifth thing is incest, sex within the family. Leviticus 18, verses 6 to 18. I'm not going to read that, but I'll read the first couple of verses. None of you shall approach to any that is near kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. The nakedness of thy father, the nakedness of thy mother, thou shalt not uncover. She is thy mother. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. And it goes on to list all the different kinds of relatives within your family, brother, sister, aunts, and uncles, and so forth. And it says no.
No. Right.
No matter what you might think, the answer is no.
So, on my dad's side, Brother Ken, his older brother's son and wife, when they got married, my dad's older brother's son, his wife tried to poison him, and of course he failed. They gave the sandwiches to the dog, and they died right there. Well, long story short, the woman that my dad's older brother's son married, she ended up marrying her brother. Married. And I didn't know him real well, but he ended up marrying her brother.
Okay. This is the largest section of all the verses involved, all that 139 verses. This area of incest has 24 verses. And so it's very specific. The sixth thing is bastard children.
Okay.
Now, this is really significant. And the first verse is Deuteronomy 23 and verse 2-4. A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord. An Ammonite and a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation. They shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever, because they met you not with bread and water in the way when you came forth out of Egypt. And because they hired against thee Balaam, the son of Beor, of Pethor, of Mesopotamia, to curse thee. So it says 10 generations of a bastard are not supposed to enter the congregation.
Right.
Now, this becomes interesting because the last king, Coniah, Jeconiah, the J was dropped off and became Coniah. And from Coniah to Jesus, it's 10 generations.
Yeah, I understand.
See? And Jesus is virgin born, so he breaks that lineage by being virgin born, and so he erases that law, even though that's still God's guidance, is bastard children. Now there again, if we put that on the qualifications for church membership, how many members would we lose?
Yeah, it is strange.
Yeah,
It is.
although we laugh, it's really not funny.
Right.
Because if you took adultery, everything we've gone through, and bastard children and sodomites, but a lot of people not going to come in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The seventh thing is marriage. This is the largest section, 47 verses. And the thing about Israel is interracial marriage. He told Israel, do not marry the heathen. All the pagans, the Gentiles, the other nations that are not Israel, that are not part of the 12 tribes, do not intermarry. Because as sure as you do, they're going to mess you up. And that's what happened.
Right.
That's what happened with Balaam at Baal Peor. He had them, since he couldn't curse them, he had them curse themselves. Well, let's have an ecumenical meeting. You come to our church today, and I'll go to your church tomorrow.
Right.
You know,
I understand.
and you come worship with me as I worship Baal, and I'll come over to your synagogue while you worship whoever it is you worship.
Right.
Well, that's what happened all along the way. You go through after Joshua, you go through the judges, and they were always off the wagon. And they finally got King David, and he had him on the right track. And then his son Solomon married all them different wives from all the different nations. And he built them houses for their gods, and then he started going to their worship service.
Right.
And so then he lost it. And when his son Jeroboam took over, and Jeroboam from the northern kingdom tried to reunite, he wouldn't, he gave him bad news, bad-mouthed him. So that's when Israel split.
Right.
You got 10 tribes to the north and the 2 to the south. And basically, and over time, over the next kings, it was up and down, up and down, up and down. And till finally God said enough already.
Right.
And he sent them to captivity. And along with these is Exodus 34, 11 to 16, and Deuteronomy 7, verses 3 and 4. He says, because they will turn you away. And that's what happened. And so basically, a Baptist should marry a Baptist. Now, we got all these different base denominations. You got Presbyterians, Methodists,
Right.
Baptists, and so forth, Pentecostal, what they used to be. And, basically they were all decent.
Decent. Right.
Yeah. But now during our lifetime, many of them have turned away from the truth. They use a different translation. They're ordaining women, they're ordaining homosexuals, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Which we just went through reading. No.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's war. Now you talk about being in the military.
Mm-hmm.
In war, it says if you went to war and you saw a pretty young lady, you thought you'd like to have her for a wife, you could take her, and but you had to give her 30 days to mourn the loss of her family and her country, and then you could take her to be your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And then newlyweds. Now this would be hard to practice today, but a newlywed was not to be required to go to war or conduct business.
Right.
He was supposed to stay at home and cheer up his wife.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just took her from her family,
Mm-hmm.
and to establish your own family. And so during that 1 year period, if there's a war, you don't have to go, and you don't do any business.
Mm-hmm.
Family support. Today we can barely get by on ourselves, let alone help somebody else.
Yeah.
But that was the way it was. But anyhow, when we do have newlyweds in our family, we should help them as much as possible.
Right.
Particularly if they once they've started to have children. Children can really put a stress on the family,
Oh, yeah.
and it takes up time and space, and it can take away from your personal relationship between the two of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, hey, let me take care of your kids the rest of the day, and y'all go out and have some fun.
Right.
Or here's $20, go out to dinner or something.
Right.
$20 might pay for one.
Well, that's about the truth.
Basically, if you go to a decent place, you can't hardly get by without
I know it.
that much, so forth. Well, our time is up.
I have a quick question I want to
Okay.
ask you. Now, of course, I know things are different today than it was years ago. And I think before when they had Woodstock, I don't know if you know what that is.
Yep.
All right, I wasn't there, but I had some friends that was in Woodstock. That was when the Vietnam War
Mm-hmm.
started to be a big thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to ask you, how do you feel personally, and this won't go no further than me and you, how do you feel about interrelation marriages, like black marrying a white, and if they do, and they love each other, is God going to accept that, or should, I know I wouldn't do it. I'd marry within my own kind. But how do you look at the situation?
Okay,
like
I had to develop that through my own Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
I was basically raised non-discriminatory.
Right.
Where I went to school, we had whites, and as far as I know, we all got along.
Right.
Now, as far as living in housing, there's kind of de facto segregation. Most of the time, blacks would be in this area and Mexicans in this area.
Right.
But we were so poor, we lived wherever we could find a house.
Right. Yeah, I can
And
understand that.
so there was a time when we lived right at the edge of town, and that happened to be right at the edge of where predominantly Mexican.
Mm.
And so the neighbor kids were Mexican, and that's who I played with.
Right.
I mean, well, they were mostly basically Catholic, so we were Church of God, so we didn't go to church together,
Right.
but we played together.
Right.
And through all, from first grade through 12th grade, I was in school with them. So that's the way I was raised.
Right.
Now, when I got in the Navy and I got to Pensacola, I joined a church there that particular pastor, he didn't beat it on it from the pulpit. He would bring it up now and then, but he was basically a segregationist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got some, and I got some confused messages there.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I asked another preacher, And he was kind of the opposite. He said it's just a traditional thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife's family is from the South,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and so that was basically segregationist.
Right.
And so I was going along with mixed feelings. And then there's the propaganda by TV,
Mm-hmm.
not only the news media and movies.
Right.
You know, who's the bad guy in the movie? He's either a black or a Mexican.
Right.
Well, what does that tell you? You know, what kind of image is that broadcasting?
Right.
And so I fed that. And then you go to the news. Well, who's the news going to broadcast? Who's doing the writing?
Mm-hmm.
Who's doing the breaking in? Who's going to jail?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's mostly non-white.
You're right.
And so you get a different message there. And so I had to study the Word of God.
Right.
And there are three groups of people in this world.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Jews, God's chosen nation. There's the Gentiles, that's the rest of us.
Right.
And then the Church of Jesus Christ.
Right.
If you're saved and born again, you're a member of the body of Christ. I don't care what color your skin is.
Right.
Okay? And Paul tells us to marry, basically instruct us, we should marry like-minded.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't say like color. And he left the Jews and went to the Gentiles with the gospel. That's why we got it.
Right.
Because it spread to the northwest across Europe, and then we brought it over here,
Right.
our ancestors. And so, biblically speaking, a Christian should marry a Christian.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Outside of the world, they're pagans anyway, so let them do what they want.
Right.
But in either case, marriage is honorable in all,
Mm-hmm.
but whoremongers and adulterers God shall judge.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's a good note to stop on.
Okay.